Okay, so Geogebra, you see, has the geo for geometry and the gebra part of algebra. I'm going to do some of the gebra part here, show you the algebra. A very, very common applet that you see on web pages is something to be able to graph a family of functions like ax squared plus bx plus c, a quadratic, and be able to move a and b and c and see what happens to the graph. We can do that with Geogebra. It's very easy. There's a tool for making sliders. You just click on this tool, click on the screen, and you can change. If you want to measure angles, you can do that so that you're in degrees or radians, but we're just going to do a number right now. You can give it any name. If you want to use Greek letters, you have the pull down here. That's useful for angles. Okay, and then you can set the interval. I'm going to leave it to go from -5 to 5 by 0.1. So I can change. If I wanted to count by whole numbers, we could change that to a 1, or we could change the smallest or largest values. And if you click on slider, you can change between horizontal and vertical, or you can change the width of the slider bar or fix the bar on the screen. I'm just going to leave that as it is. And then animation, you can animate sliders by clicking on them. You can change the speed, and you can have it oscillate or only go up or down from -5 to 5 or from 5 to -5. I'm going to leave it on oscillate if I did want to animate it, and leave the speed at 1. Click apply, and there you go. Make sure you click on the pointer tool, and you can drag back and forth, and we see that we have a slider that goes from -5 to 5 in 0.1 increments. Okay, I'm going to make another one. I call this one B, which it automatically did for me. And apply. Make sure I click on the pointer tool, and then I can drag it. Another slider. Call this one C. So there we go. Let's set them all to 1 to start with. And then I can go down to the input bar, and I can now use those in anything else because they're defined, their values controlled by the slider. So when you do a function, you can either just type in the formula a times x squared plus b times x plus c, hit enter, it'll automatically name it, in this case f of x, and you see the graph. I'm going to delete that for a second to show you a couple of other ways. You can manually, like if I wanted to call it g of x, I could do that. Equals a times x squared plus b times x plus c. Okay. Or you could even call it y equals a times x squared plus b times x plus c, if you would rather have it in that form. Okay. So one more time, I'm just going to go with f of x this time. Equals a times x squared plus b times x plus c. There we go, and let's see some of the effects of the slider here. So you'll see that f is the label on the function. I'm going to turn that off. So if we drag a, we see, as students pretty easily figure out, it controls whether the graph opens up or down, if it's positive or negative, and how wide the graph is. We have the a is the vertical stretch. C is a vertical shift up and down. B is sometimes a little harder for students to figure out, but let me show you one thing you can do with Geogebra. You can find max and mins by using the command extremum. You can always look through the command menu and just play around and see what you can find. For instance, we have extremum, but if you start typing and you get close enough, it'll pop up. We have the extremum. I'm going to do the extremum of f. I hit enter, and this graph only has a max, and it found it. Okay? If you look at the properties of this thing, that point is the extremum of f. Okay? And then we can turn on the trace. If I right click, we can put trace on, and when we move B, we'll see where that thing goes, and students can see that it's tracing out a parabola itself, and then try to figure out the equation for that parabola. Okay? So just something really simple you can do. By creating sliders, you can look at families of algebraic functions, move the cursors around, and see the effects on the graph. If you want to turn that trace off, just right click and click back on it again. While I have this one on here, I'll show you if we wanted to add the x-intercepts on the graph. Those are the roots. So we do root of f, and we can get those points B and C here. I'm going to change their color. So click on right click, do object properties, the color, let's make them red. Let's do the same thing here. Nice thing is, make sure I pick the same shade. You can click on the little recent color. Okay. If I wanted to do the y-intercept, I could do the point 0, f of 0. And there we go. Let's change the color of that. Let's make it blue. And of course, when I did those, it didn't depend on the specific function. If we move A, or B, or C, we see that we still have the x and y intercepts and what's a max now, which I can make a min if we make it open up. The point becomes a min, and we no longer have any x-intercepts as we don't cross the axis. We see that they're now undefined over here, since it doesn't do the complex numbers. So that's my introduction to some basics of algebra that you can do with GeoGebra.